Yeah. Alright, look. Growing up, I was never told I could actually be a doctor or a lawyer or just happy being me. So I grew into a current that had more pull than the sea. Not knowing what passing moments, I'm looking more like the streets. What are dreams if you don't have a place to sleep? No thirst for knowledge, trying to figure what to eat. And it seems like we are in a place that'll last forever. The ghetto, the broken, my life I'm trying to piece together. Poor me, or is it poor we? We rich in hard times, but get managed poorly. Lordy, Lordy, can you listen closely? I'ma do something for you that no one did for me. So pay me attention and then buy into your dreams. Life's a game of chess, push pawns to some queens. You can be what you wanna be, reality belongs to you. You choose what you grow into. Who wanna be a doctor? Who wanna practice medicine? Who wanna change the world? Who wanna be the president? Who wanna see the stars? Who wanna be a genius? Dreams last forever, they can never be defeated.
I can't help it, I'm a dreamer. 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 I can't help it, I'm a dreamer.
I just wanna change the world forever. No lie, I wanna bring the world together. And I admit I'm kinda selfish cause I wanna be the reason. Not for the recognition, I recognize what we need. And I don't wanna fall, trying to spring change like the seasons. Consequences disrupting the system, but I ain't retreating. I'm optimistic, thinking it's a fight worth leading. I bleed the blood of a leader, I die for what I believe. And I'm just saying it's real. I encourage you to do more than just say what you feel. Let's take a stand as a man, not forming slaves in the field. And let's build each other up instead of stuck and just destroying everything that we build. Why people gotta get killed before we recognize their greatness? Why we gotta get locked in cages to start exercising patience? No lie, let's start making changes. Let's start making rearrangements to our list of priorities, cause majority on different pages. Yeah. Don't fall into the trap. Let your mind rise above that. Look for the signs and that. Take the time to master your craft. Yeah, don't fall into the trap. Let your mind rise above that. Look for the signs and that. Take the time to master your craft.
I can't help it, I'm a dreamer. 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 I can't help it, I'm a dreamer.
I just can't help it, I won't. Tell me give up, I say no. I've been there before. Dreaming but know that I'm wrong. Maybe it's something I'm wrong.
I don't think anybody comes to this work accidentally. We are all broken, and we want to be part of not only fixing ourselves, but fixing each other.
When a young person comes into the Moran Center, it's very clear that they feel supported. These young people are going to grow up and show the world what they have.
The Moran Center for Youth Advocacy was founded by Alderman James B. Moran back in 1981. We are lawyers and social workers working hand in hand to stem the school-to-prison pipeline.
What I really like about the Moran Center is the holistic approach.
The organization has married social work and legal representation. It's a place where people really live the mission.
If you're working at the Moran Center, you call it more of a calling than, oh, this is a job.
One of my close friends, he was a young man of color. He had some brush-ins with the law. He ended up taking his life. I didn't want anyone to ever feel that alone. I decided I wanted to be a social worker with populations that often weren't given a second chance when I was in 8th grade, and it's not changed since then. We never give up on anybody. Vanessa came to the Moran Center when she was only 13 years old. She had been experiencing extreme physical, emotional, and psychological abuse.
She lost her temper one day. So she was arrested, she was charged, and she was prosecuted. We advocated those zealously for her. We got the charges reduced. We got her placed on a period of supervision.
I've now known her for 9.5 years. She just needed some support and needed someone to talk to. And I happen to be that person. I am very, very thankful for that.
I can honestly say that Kristen has helped me grow into this young, mature adult. I would want people to know that it's a blessed journey when having the Moran Center on your side.
Vanessa now is a mother, and she's working full-time. She's pursuing her education, and I really do think of her as a great success.
She's been there day one because we've worked on a lot and we've talked about so much, and she's watched me grow and become the young woman that I am today.
Seeing Vanessa having matured from a child to becoming a mom, it means we've got to recognize that every child has something to give.
Kids like Vanessa are charged and prosecuted and seen as other. We recognize that we work in an unbelievably broken system, and we fight hard against that system. And it is the best feeling in the world to stand up on behalf of one of our children. We are heading from the Moran Center to the Skokie Courthouse, and so often when we're taking this drive, we're reminding them what will happen. When they walk into that courthouse, they have to be strong. Reassuring them, though, all at the same time, that we'll be standing next to them.
When the Moran Center came in, it was providing a role of support and a role of love. That is something at that point that she had not ever had consistently in her life. And to me, that's exactly why we're here.
We all have the capacity to do good, to succeed, to be successful.
So I think one of the things that's unique about the Moran Center is that we don't charge for any of the services that we provide.
In Vanessa's case alone, just the social work piece of it would have been over $64,000. Justice demands access, and justice demands a community that is willing to open their arms to them.
Justice demands fairness.
It means we've got to provide opportunities, and we've got to make sure we're not leaving anyone behind.
Justice demands exactly what we do each and every day at the Moran Center.
I'm still on my journey, and I love the support that they are still giving me to this day. It's one of a kind, like unconditional love, literally.
Yeah. Alright, look. Growing up, I was never told I could actually be a doctor or a lawyer or just happy being me. So I grew into a current that had more port in the sea. Not knowing what passing moments, I'm looking more like the streets. What are dreams if you don't have a place to sleep? No thirst for knowledge, trying to figure what to eat. And it seems like we are in a place that'll last forever. The ghetto, the broken, my life I'm trying to piece together. Poor me, or is it poor we? We rich in hard times but get managed poorly. Lordy, Lordy, can you listen closely? I'ma do something for you that no one did for me. So pay me attention and then buy into your dreams. Life's a game of chess. Push pawns to some queens. You can be what you wanna be. Reality.
Good evening. I'm Patrick Keenan Devlin, the Executive Director of the James B. Moran Center for Youth Advocacy. Thank you for attending tonight's virtual gala. We had a great lineup of board members and community members set to speak with you tonight, but due to the COVID-19 pandemic, you're just stuck with me, and I hope that's okay. We thank our major sponsors, Haggerty Consulting, Schiff Hardin, Tucker G. and Greco Charitable Fund, Northwestern University, Evanston Community Bank and Trust, a Wintrust Community Bank, and Kirkland & Ellis. At the Moran Center, we integrate social work with legal representation, providing justice in the courtroom, access to the classroom, and support in the community. This year's theme is Justice Responds, Justice Renews, and Justice Rebuilds. And that is what we do for the more than 1,400 individuals and families that we serve yearly. We respond to the needs of our clients, we help renew hope, and in doing so, we help youth and their families rebuild their lives. We have a fast-paced but informative and inspirational program planned for you tonight. We hope it will inspire you to partner with us in the important work we do. We're excited about this year's honorees, the co-creators of the award-winning podcast Ear Hustle. You will hear from them shortly. Right now, please turn your attention to the short video, which will provide you with more insight about the Moran Center's mission and work. COVID-19 has swept the world, and it has swept our community as well. Our kids and the families that we represent have felt the pain, the heartache, the stress of the pandemic deeply. And the Moran Center has been there, on the front lines, responding to their needs, representing them in court and on the streets, ensuring that they are safe and protected, housed and cared for.
Being in custody is extremely stressful under any circumstance. With the COVID-19 crisis, they feel like they are stuck. They have no control over what is going to happen to them. There are two particular young men that we represent. They were both in custody and were homeless. The county jail was the, quote, hot spot in all of the U.S. Kristen was able to find a safe place for both of these individuals if I could get the judge to approve their release. Going into the courthouse, there's a computer sitting on a table and I can see the judge. Currently, we have been able to arrange for continued safe housing for both individuals. I think it's important that we're there for them.
Coronavirus and everything that's going on right now is just as much a mental health issue as it is a physical health issue. One of the many creative solutions that we've come up with is to go on these therapeutic, socially distanced walks.
I met Kristen through the Moran Center when I had got myself in some trouble at the age of 15. I was usually supposed to have, 2 or 3 sessions a week, but since Corona been going on, we've been going on walks.
He's someone who, in the beginning was tough to engage because his walls were up so high. We've really built a strong relationship over these last 5 years. During this time, there's a lot of stress and there's a lot of unknown, and so we'll go on 30 to 45-minute walks just so that we can get out of the environment that he's in.
I get fresh air, just love nature, help me cope with anything I got going on, give me advice, still have somebody I can talk to, not just, sit in the crib and quarantine the whole time.
We are on the front lines of this pandemic every day. I get crisis calls every day. This is something that none of us have been through. We've had to learn new things and new ways to be able to be there for people when they really need it the most.
During this COVID crisis, we've quickly powered into remote pro bono services. We provide free legal advice to families in housing, family law, and issues that affect financial stability. We are constantly striving to connect this bridge to families to access to justice. Justice rebuilding means that we're looking at how can we make this bridge stronger and better, because when things break, that's when we can really take a look at where is there a fault, where is there something missing for those who are most in need.
The kids and families that we serve were already on the fringes of society. With the outbreak of the pandemic, they have felt joblessness, food insecurity. The wheels of justice need to continue, keeping kids out of the broken school-to-prison pipeline. Social workers and lawyers are on the front lines of the pandemic, and they will be on the front lines of the recovery, because it will take justice to rebuild our community and our country. We hope our current friends and supporters have renewed passion for our work after viewing the video. And those of you who are new to the Moran Center, we hope that you're inspired to partner with us. Our goal is to ensure justice and restore hope through legal representation, advocacy, trauma-informed social work services, and restorative community work. The Moran Center aims to dismantle the destructive school and poverty pipelines which disproportionately drive poor youth of color and children with special needs out of our schools and out of our community and into broken institutions. Specifically, we represent youth up to the age of 26 in juvenile delinquency and criminal proceedings. We expunge and seal criminal records, removing barriers to employment, housing, and education. We serve families in our school-based civil legal clinic, stabilizing disinvested families so their children can stay on track in school. We represent students with special needs obtain the services they need to make progress in school, advocate for students facing school discipline, and equip caregivers with self-advocacy tools. We build a restorative community by implementing restorative practices and policies across government, schools, nonprofits, and businesses, exemplified by The Collective, a new collaboration of 9 youth-serving agencies rooted in restorative principles with the goal of establishing a more seamless network of support for youth and their families. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the complex challenges that our clients face in normal times have intensified. We are partnering with our local school district to advocate for families facing evictions or struggling to secure unemployment benefits. As confirmed cases of COVID-19 skyrocketed at the Cook County Jail, Moran Center attorneys filed emergency motions seeking judicial review of our young clients' detention. Again, under normal circumstances, supporting young people transitioning from detention is complex. But with families unwilling to take in youth due to their exposure to COVID-19 and shelters at capacity, securing safe, stable housing for clients has been a daunting, time-intensive endeavor. Our attorneys are working closely with our clients with special needs to ensure that they have adequate access to technology for distance e-learning. Our social workers' caseloads have also intensified due to the added complexity of our clients' issues in the wake of the epidemic. The demand for our services far exceeds our capacity to help those who need us. Your gift today will help us continue serving our current kids and their families, as well as help us serve others who need us. Yes, now more than ever, we need your support. Please give at the highest level you can, and know your gift will transform lives. Shortly, Jen White from WBEZ Radio will moderate a conversation with our dynamic honorees, Nigel Poor and Earlonne Woods. Time won't allow them to speak as long as you will want to hear from them, but for those of you who can make a gift of $500 or more before midnight tonight, you'll be invited to a special backstage Zoom call where you can meet with our speakers, ask questions, and have further dialogue with them at a future date. Here then are some of the ways your gift can make a difference in the lives of kids and families.
I saw my brother, he did me wrong. Had a gun up to my face, my money's gone. I said, please don't be that way, I'm just trying to make it through the day. He said, you better not come around me before too long. Love is crying, love is dying, love is crying love. I saw my sister, she did me wrong. I had a smile upon my face, but hers was so cold. I said, sister, please don't go, I'm just trying to say hello. She said, you better not come round me before too long. Love is crying, love is dying, love is crying love. Love is crying, love is dying, love is crying love. Can't you hear the cries from heaven up above, looking down upon this world of dying love? Hurry up and don't delay, before your chance to save the world is gone away. Ask my father, Lord, what's wrong? Through his tears I heard him say that I'll be strong. 'Cause the world I'm trying to save done turn me away, but they better come round my way before too long. Love is dying, love is crying, love is crying, love. Love is crying, love is dying, love is crying, love.
It is now my pleasure to recognize and honor our guests this evening who are receiving the Honorable James B. Moran Center Justice from the Lighthouse Legacy Award 2020, which is given each year to individuals who exemplify our mission. Please welcome Jen White from WBEZ Radio and our honorees, Pulitzer Prize finalists Nigel Poor and Earlonne Woods.
Hi, everybody. So glad you could join us for this great conversation with two of my favorite people in the podcast world, the folks behind the incredible Ear Hustle podcast, Earlonne Woods and Nigel Poor. Earlonne, Nigel, hi.
Oh, good to see you again.
So it's been a while since we've seen each other. The last time we talked, it was face-to-face, which was great in Chicago. Nigel, how are things going right now?
You know, I'm thankful because we're still working on the podcast. We're getting things done. But it's a struggle. You know, I think we're going on 60 days of sheltering in place. But it's really heartwarming to be able to connect like this. So I can't complain.
Earlonne, what about you?
Well, I'll say this. I get a lot of calls from guys inside, and I'm so glad I'm not inside, inside a prison during this pandemic. I'm sure it's weighing heavy on people's minds. So outside of that, I'm just enjoying making up excuses to go get on the highway and just drop off an image to Nigel.
Yeah, we had some nice, very distant visits, and then that's great too. But not enough. Not enough.
Being in your car is social distancing as well. You can just go for a drive.
That's true.
I've done some of that. Well, I want to get into the podcast. And Nigel, when you first started collecting these stories, when did you know, first of all, that it was important to collect these stories and make sure other people heard them?
To be honest, I knew from the beginning. I knew even when it was an idea that this was an important thing to do, because I felt it so strongly, and I just knew that if we could tell stories about everyday life inside, that people were going to care and people were going to listen, because it's compelling and it's about being alive. It's about being human. I always say this, it's not about the numbers, it's about the everyday. And when people hear that, it opens them up somehow. So I had faith. I really had faith in it. And I had a great partner.
Yeah. I mean, Earlonne, for you, when you first started producing the podcast, you were producing on the inside. What did people say about having their stories collected and having someone listen to their experiences?
I think luckily individuals at the prison we were at were like well into their sentence. So individuals was just open and honest and just ready to, unpack, and when you sit me down and Nigel down, especially Nigel can ask some great questions and make people really, really think about some stuff, but I think individuals would be very open to it.
But Earlonne, I would imagine that, some of the stuff you all talk about is pretty sensitive. It's revealing. People have to be vulnerable. Talk about the relationship side of this and how you build trust so that people feel comfortable telling their stories.
I think individuals be around, I'll say me, for example, you know, I've been in prison for like probably 18 years when we started this. And I knew a lot of the individuals on the yard, and they knew who I was. They knew, you know, my mannerism was around the prison, my reputation. So I don't think it was a hard leap to get individuals to come and talk. Most people might be like, nah, I'm good. But then as time went on and they started hearing things from their family, they was like, hey, I don't think it was that hard at all. You?
Nigel, what about for you?
Well, wanted to add something to what Erlan said. One of the things that Erlan is really good at is that, I mean, I know he talks a lot on the podcast, but he's not, you know, he's not a man of a ton of words. So when he asked something or when he talked to somebody, it had weight, right? I mean, he's just not like chitter chattering all the time. So I think that really helped. Like, he was serious when he went to people and they trusted him because of his mannerisms, because of his manner, because of people knowing him. So I think that really helped a lot. I also think that both of us have always gone to people when we're trying to get them into stories and when we're actually interviewing them with openness and vulnerability and a sense of trust. And I think that I really do believe people sense that. And I can see in an interview, and Jen, I'm sure this happens to you too, when all of a sudden somebody relaxes into the interview.
Yeah.
And that's when you know that that trust has happened, and then you can go into the hard stuff. And it's a really poignant moment for anyone who experiences it.
Nigel, what is it like for you to be a person who's trusted with these stories?
It's an incredible honor. I mean, it makes life worth living. It makes getting up every morning exciting, because I feel so strongly about the work that we do, the collaborative work that we do. So it's a gift. It is a constant gift for me. Makes me a little teary, but it really is. Yeah.
So I want to talk about, you know, in the very beginning, as you were creating this podcast, figuring out how to make the pieces work, what were some of the big logistical challenges that came along with launching this podcast? And I want to hear about it from both of your perspectives, because you were having different experiences. Erlan, for you, what were those big challenges going in?
So in the beginning, like I know you just covered, far as, you know, in the beginning, individuals to talk. I think in the beginning, people didn't know what we were doing, so people were like, what are y'all doing, you know? But I think the major challenge was not to, I want to say this, like betray, for me, it was like not to betray the confidence and that people put in us, or not to represent people in the wrong way, you know, because this is the community that we're dealing with. And it's like I want to say it's a straight line that you got to walk down, and you don't want to disrespect either side, you know, whether it's the administration side or it's the general population side. So to me, that was like it was a constant juggling to me.
Mm-hmm. What about for you, Nigel? What were some of the logistical difficulties that went along with launching a podcast?
Oh yeah, I mean, I had so much stress and joy the first year we launched, but just like the timing of everything, not being able to call Erlan or email him when something came up, you know, knowing that when I left for the day, everything was in order. I knew Erlan was going to take care of stuff, but then there were things totally outside of control, like if there was a lockdown, or Lieutenant Robinson, who's great, couldn't get to listening to something. I stressed all the time about deadlines and wanting to do the best by everyone inside. But also when Radiotopia and PRX picked us up and started distributing us, you know, I felt a huge responsibility to them to not let them down. I mean, they took a chance on us, and I really wanted us to be able to live up professionally to all the obligations that we had agreed to. And I wanted, when the podcast was being done inside, for us to be treated like professional colleagues and not like, okay, they're doing fine for coming out of a prison. You know, I never wanted that to become part of the conversation. So I was always hyper aware of getting everything done.
Erlan, I can see you reacting to what Nigel's saying there. I mean, it feels to me, at least, that you had this real feeling of ownership for the podcast from the very beginning. Am I reading that right?
Well, so I didn't have to deal with all the stresses that she just said, you know, because, you know, she had to deal with bringing stuff in, taking stuff out, and, you know, dealing with Lieutenant Robinson on that. And and whether or not he'll approve it and deny it. So she went through way more. You know, me, when I see Lieutenant Robinson, it's like, what's up, bruh? You handled that yet? You know, it wasn't, you know. So, but I know that Nigel has been can I say worker bee?
Yeah.
He has definitely been a worker bee. Like even prior to Ear Hustle, when we were doing the regular, like the KLW stories, you know, Nigel used to always just be the worker bee. That was her thing. So it was listening to her say that was fun.
Well, I want to take a step back now because there's a lot that happened that led to the launch of Ear Hustle. And Nigel, just give us like a really quick history lesson on how Ear Hustle came to be.
Yes. So very quick. So I had been volunteering inside the prison, teaching through the Prison University Project. And through that, I met a lot of different men. And I really wanted to try to figure out some collaborative project. And that's when I found about the Media Lab at San Quentin, where they were doing films and the newspaper comes out of. And Erlon was working down there. So when I started going down there, I met Erlon. He was kind of behind the scenes doing more tech stuff. And we worked together for about 3 years on this radio project that he mentioned. And it was just getting a little tiresome to me. And I wanted to do something that I thought was more creative. And Erlon and I had gotten to know each other, and I wanted to work with him. Like, he was the guy I wanted to work with. And so I said to him, do you want to try this podcast? And we started talking about it, and it just kind of blossomed from there. And our goal was to do a podcast to just be aired inside the prison. And then I heard about the PodQuest contest from Radiotopia. We got permission to enter, and then Erlon is better at this part than you got the numbers down and that stuff.
And out of 1,436 other contestants and 15. Huh?
15.
What'd I say, 14?
14. You're usually better at numbers. Oh my God.
All right. After, now, you know, 1437, the Senate Bill 1437, that's in my head right now. All right. After 1,536 other contestants in 53 different countries, we made it to the top 10. And then we had to have interviews, and we made it to the top 4. And then we had to produce what they call a podcast, which was, it was a lot of work. We had to produce 3 pilot shows. And after that, we ended up winning. And when we won, it was like Nigel was hyped. We were hyped too, because at the end of the day, we don't know what it means. We just won something. But Nigel kind of knew what it meant, you know. So,
oh yeah.
We were just getting used. We hadn't even really heard that many podcasts at the time, you know.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think and it became I can humbly say it became a success very quickly. But I think one of the things that comes across is that how much Erlon and I really enjoy doing this work together. And even though it's hard, and even though we cover a lot of difficult topics, there's an underlying enthusiasm and just joy for getting the work done. And I think that fuels us both through any of the things that are difficult or depressing or upsetting, or the hills, like we think, oh, we're never going to achieve this. That's what pushes it forward, I think, is just the joy of working on something that we both feel is very important.
Now, Erlon, when the podcast started, you were incarcerated at San Quentin. You're not anymore. You're a full-time podcaster, still producing Ear Hustle with Nigel. How did your relationship to the podcast change after your release?
So, well, what changed really was like prior, like when I think that I want to say the last year, I think we started like really trying to find someone, and I'm gonna say it, Nigel, that would replace me inside of prison, you know. And once we found, you know, we went through a whole little process, but once we found the couple of people that was going to do that, I felt comfortable, and I knew that we were going to start dealing with stories about reentry once I got out. So it was going to be a different role. You know, I was just, instead of doing the insides, I was going to do the outside. So that's what I was preparing for. And I was actually preparing to go into one of the craziest transitional houses ever, just to be around a gang of stories.
You know, and Nigel, for you, I mean, how did it change to have your partner, you know, out with you?
Well, first of all, it was amazing. Personally, it was amazing, and I knew, and I hoped it was going to be good for the podcast. But I also it was also hard. I mean, I really loved working with Erlon inside, and I was mourning that change. I don't like change. So I was mourning that change. That has nothing to do with me wanting Earlonne out. I just knew it was going to be a shift, and I didn't know how it was going to go. And I didn't know. I mean, Earlonne had been in prison 22 years. Maybe he didn't even want to be involved in this anymore. Maybe he'd be totally within his rights to be like, I don't want to have anything to do with prison anymore. And I don't want to do this project without him. So without pushing him, I was hoping that he was going to make the decision to stay, and he did. And it's been wonderful. And that, you know, this is our baby. But I think now that Earlonne's out, I hope he feels that even more, because he's able to participate in things that he couldn't do when he was in prison. Like, he couldn't have done this. He couldn't be on a lot of interviews. We couldn't travel together. He couldn't do some of like the technical stuff that he can do now. So now I love that we get to do all those things that normal colleagues get to do. Like, we travel so much together, not anymore because of COVID, but we've had so many cool adventures together because of the show. And I can't wait to the day we can get back to those traveling adventures.
Earlonne, why did you decide to stay with the podcast? Why was it important for you to continue this work?
Well, I think, one, honestly, I know I did a lot of rehabilitative work on myself, but I was freed as a result of this work. And this work, I think, have humanized so many individuals inside of prisons in America and probably around the world, to where I hear a lot from a lot of my partners, like, man, y'all doing it. Y'all doing it. You know, I hear from lawyers telling me like, man, y'all make our job a little easy when I'm trying to explain something. I just send somebody an episode, you know? So I knew that the work was way bigger than me, you know? It was way bigger than me. So it was definitely the right fit. Plus, when you get out of prison, you want a job. You know, so that was definitely one of the things that was real consistent. And, you know, producing a podcast, I had, you know, built up the skill set, you know, to do it. So of course, might as well continue.
Yeah. And I think it's funny. I mean, Earlonne, between the two of us, is the person who gets all the technical stuff. So like, he has a better phone than I have. He knows how to use a computer better than I know how. He knows how to use Pro Tools. So it's amazing to me, like, in such a fast time, he's just like learned all of that stuff.
And Earlonne, for folks who are unfamiliar with the story behind your release and how it's connected to the podcast, I mean, that's a really important piece of the history of Ear Hustle. Tell us about it.
So I want to say 2017, I submitted a commutation to the governor, you know, basically telling them, look, hey, this is all the stuff I've been doing. This is my rehabilitation. You know, here's my parole plans. Here's this, that, and the other. And I submitted it, like, not knowing what had happened. And I ended up getting an interview with you know, some people. And in that interview, you got to go through a process that took about a year. And at the end of the day, you know, Governor Brown actually commuted my sentence. And when I got that call from the governor's office, I'm sitting there talking to him. I'm like, yeah, you know, they like, yeah, we about to release you, but first, I don't know if it was but first, but they was like, we love the podcast. They was like giddy. I was like, all right. So definitely it has had an effect on a lot of people in a lot of high places.
So Nigel, with you all looking at stories more focused on reentry, and now Earlonne is producing on the outside with you. Talk about this new chapter you're in for Ear Hustle.
Yeah, so working on the reentry stories is so different. One, I mean, it kind of in a funny way, it's harder to get people involved in it than it was on the inside. Scheduling people, obviously they've got a lot going on in their lives, and I think it's also, and Earlonne, you should jump in here, but I'm guessing when people get out of prison, it isn't actually a place they want to be brought back to, right? So when we're asking them to think about that and then think about their reentry, I imagine it can be emotionally difficult, but it's been exciting. And the other thing that I'm really loving is that we're getting women's voices into the stories now. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, I think that formerly incarcerated individuals that served over 10 years, 15 years, when you get out, the incarcerated experience is part of your life, you know, and you've left so many behind. you know, and so I would say most formerly incarcerated people go back into prisons to talk to the individuals. You know what I'm saying? Because we know, like I know, like when I walk into prison, individuals are inspired by my story, you know, and now I'm here, you know, so they really appreciate that, and it gives them something to look forward to. If Erlan can do it, I know I can do it. So it's not that, you know, we rebel on going back into prisons like, oh man, I'm done with that. It's just in a different context. You know what I'm saying? It's in the context of, you know, I can reach out to you, or I might say something to you that resonate with you. So definitely a lot of individuals do not mind going back into the prisons, the juvenile halls, whatever.
Well, I think one thing that's really important about the work you're doing in this, you know, chapter of Ear Hustle's history, you know, is this conversation about reentry, because there's so much that's needed around reentry and helping people rebuild. You know, Erlan, when you think about your own experience and the experience of other people, you know, who have been incarcerated, talk about what's needed to rebuild a life on the outside.
Well, definitely a person definitely needs structure in their own lives, you know, discipline. But I think, you know, getting out is definitely housing, jobs, continuing your support groups, dealing with whether it's groups, you know, a lot of individuals I know outside would just call each other and just talk, you know, about what's going on. But what's definitely needed is a support team out here, you know, because a lot of times when, especially in the past, it's changing now, but a lot of times when you go to fill out a job application, you know, have you ever been convicted of a felony? And if that's not on there no more, it's the background check. So when the background check come back, oh, well, we have to fire you. You know, you didn't mention this, or it wasn't on there. But I think it's more of really having somewhere to go and having somewhere to work, I think.
Yeah. And sorry. One of the things I think I've thought about with Ear Hustle Stories is I don't want us to make prison look like it's not as hard as it is, right? Because our stories don't always concentrate on that. And it's also the same with the reentry stories. Like Erlan's, like he's in this wonderful place. That's pretty unusual for people getting out. And so I also hope that our reentry stories can be realistic about how difficult it is for people. We've been fortunate enough too, our Antoine Williams, who was one of the co-founders of Ear Hustle and was the sound designer inside, got out how long ago, Erlan?
He got out maybe about 6 months ago.
6 months ago, and we were also able to bring him on part-time to work on Ear Hustle. And so that's also great too. But so many people get out without any job offers waiting for them, or, you know, nothing.
Right.
I wonder too, I mean, you're trying to bring more women's voices into Ear Hustle. And Nigel, I'm wondering about what's emerging in some of those conversations, specifically around women who are incarcerated or who are reentering society.
What I think about a lot is how everyone getting out of prison has a hard time, but it seems harder for women. I mean, it feels like there's not as many services. There's not as much interest from the public in general about what happens to women, not just incarcerated, but women in general. And I think their needs are different. And what I hope with our stories is that people will find the stories about women as compelling as the stories about men. I mean, unfortunately, I think we just have a very sexist society. And so I feel frustrated by it. Although, you know, the women we have interviewed are doing really well. And they, you know, so I guess I just want to make sure we talk about the hardships and also what happens. A father and a mother is obviously very important, but I'm also really curious about what happens with the relationships with mothers and their children when they've been separated. What is like coming back together like? How do you rebuild that? So those are the things I'm thinking about.
Prior to this pandemic, we were just like getting approved to go into women facilities, and we went into one of the women facilities, and and right after that, this hit. So we wasn't able to really follow her. We did go in, and she is released now. But that's one of our things too, is just to get inside these women facilities and be able to talk.
Yeah, which presents interesting challenges because in San Quentin we are based there, and so people know us. And I keep wondering what it's going to be like to go into other prisons. We're dropping in like other people. We're not spending months there. So will we be able to get the intimacy that is so much a part of an Ear Hustle story in episodes we do when we're, in quotes, visiting a prison and not part of that prison. So those are things I worry about. We'll see how we do. We will see how we do.
Definitely in season 6, we would definitely be up in them women prisons.
Yes.
So we're in the middle of a pandemic. Like I said, ordinarily we'd be having this conversation face to face. And one of the things we're seeing that isn't being talked about as much as it probably should is the fact that prisons are a very difficult place to be in the midst of a public health emergency.
Yeah.
And Erlan, you said you're hearing from people inside about what this experience is like for them. Can you share a little more about what you're hearing and why it's important for us to understand some of the specific difficulties that exist within the prison system under this circumstance?
I think on a few of our last shows, we will start them out talking to people or talking to their families about COVID-19. But when the individuals called me, especially early on, they were like, "Man, there's no such thing as social distancing in prison." You know what I'm saying? Like, we gonna get it. It's when it get here, it's gonna be bad. So you have a lot of individuals that were really, especially older individuals, that was like, "Come on, man, you got to figure out how to get us out of here." And individuals are scared because nobody want to die in prison, especially, COVID related. But I am definitely hearing a lot of concern with individuals. And then there's some individuals that's like, we'll deal with it, but for the most part, I am hearing concern about individuals' lives because they don't know if this hit and they catch it, they don't know if they're going to die. I mean, I think it's some people die, some people don't. I don't want to gamble on it, whether or not I will or won't, so I think a lot of individuals are trying their best to, be clean, be masked, everything, so that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that makes it hard is feeling so powerless. The changing structures of prison is so difficult, and in this situation, it's so hard to make any change or to know what we can do. This is probably the most locked out I've felt since I started going into San Quentin. Like, I feel the wall so heavily, and I feel the inability to do anything weighs very heavy on me. We've been getting letters from people in other prisons and emails, and so we're trying to do our best, but this is where I feel our lack of ability to do something, and that's painful.
And and one more thing, that you have a lot of individuals that they'll say, well, we can't just let violent criminals out or something. They'll come with that terminology. But you're talking about something that happened 30 years ago. That ain't the person today. It's just the crime, that they're in on. So you do hear that a lot.
One of the more fascinating conversations I've had in my career was with Sister Helen Prejean, the nun behind Dead Man Walking. She's been a long time advocate pushing back against the death penalty. And in talking to her, she talked about the way we think about justice and redemption, and the fact that they aren't these sort of polar opposite things. It's not like punishment or redemption. How it's much more complex than that, because people are complex. And Nigel, I mean, how has that question become more complex for you?
Yeah. Well, one of my pet peeves are conversations about redemption, because I think it is such a limited conversation. And just as you're saying, it sets it up that there's people we're going to care about, people we aren't going to care about. So I always push back against that conversation and say that I don't see where it's helpful. What we want as a society is to bring everybody up, no matter what their experience, no matter what they've done. So, and we intentionally in our stories stay away from the conversation of redemption. It really irritates me, actually. Because it's basically saying there's some people that you're only worth talking about or paying attention to if you've reached some predetermined level of, moral success. And I wouldn't want to make that judgment. I don't know how anyone feels okay making that judgment. So I'm I don't like it, but it comes up all the time in our work, and people often say, "Oh, your stories are so redemptive," but no, it's not what we're about. Oh, Jen, you got muted.
You got muted.
There I am. Erlan, what's your perspective?
So I think I'll just say, like, a lot of individuals get inside and they change their whole lives, but then even if you get into the redemptive thing, they change their whole lives, but they're still stuck in prison because they have these football number sentences, 100 years, 200 years, 50 years to life, whatever the case may be. And I have conversations with the governor's office. I have conversations with CDCR. But one conversation I always talk about when they talk about easing prison populations, when they talk about all that, I always say one thing. To ease the prison population in California by half, all you had to do is suspend all the enhancements that you give out. You know, I don't know if that's answering your question, but that's one of the biggest. I might have a term of 3 years. That's the crime, but it's the enhancements. Oh, we think you're in a gang. That's 10 years. You had a gun. That's another 10 years. It had bullets in it. We give you a year for each bullet. You know what I'm saying? So you get all these enhancements stacked on your original 3-year crime. And if you suspend the enhancements, you'll definitely knock a lot of people out of prison.
You know, Jen, this is a very difficult topic, and I don't know if they're going to want us to talk about this, but recently we did a story about sex offenders, particularly dealing with children. And it's a story I wanted to do for a very long time because it's such a hard topic, and it's not a topic that is going to lend itself easily to thoughts of redemption. And yet I think it's so important to talk to people who have been victims and perpetrators of that crime and try to understand it and try to have compassionate conversations around a topic that is so difficult to have compassion on. But I thought that was one of the most important episodes we've done because it shows that any conversation is possible if you're willing to go there, and that if conversation is possible, then we're maybe able to understand ourselves and other people better. So I hope we can keep doing those stories that aren't easily classified as redemption and show people that all of the people in that particular story were complicated, interesting, frustrating individuals, that nobody is one-dimensional. So, I mean, that's a digression, but
No, that was a very important episode, actually. I think that's one of the episodes outside of Tell Christy I Love Her that got like the most comments. Responses that thank you for this. You know, I went through this. And, you know, individuals somewhat getting to the root of it. But a lot of individuals have went through that, you know, have been a victim of it, you know. So it was definitely a episode that opened some people's eyes or just gave them a different point of view.
Well, something else you all delved into in a recent episode, it was about interaction with the criminal justice system when you're young, right? And Erlan, you said your first interaction with the juvenile justice system, you were, I think, 9 years old?
Yes.
And
I always say this, from my recollection, I was 9.
I mean, so talk about how that shaped you and the kind of impact that had on you. 9 years old. I mean, I think about the 9-year-olds in my life, and I cannot wrap my head around it.
So for me, it was definitely new to be on that side or be in the back seat of a police car in handcuffs because, you know, growing up, I was in a football league where the local sheriffs, which were a couple of African-American detectives, were our coaches. We had Roger Mosley. He was one of our coaches, you know, so we had positive influences when it came to police officers. But then you also have a part of them that's just like, we finna take you to, we're not even finna tell you that, hey, this is wrong, don't do this again. No, we gonna handcuff you and take you to jail. So, you know, being put in that situation at 9, it just gave me I didn't really take it on too much because I was thinking more of the whooping I was gonna get when I got home, you know, but far as the being in that position at 9, it really just gave me a different perspective of the officers in a way. And then as I became 10, 11, and getting put on police cars because they come through the neighborhood, want to search us, and we was going through all that. So it really changes your perspective on what police are, who police are,
Yeah.
or who is these people that's in our neighborhoods. We don't know them. They don't live here, but they come and terrorize it. So I had that perspective as a kid looking up at them.
There's so many horrible things about that story, but one of the things that stuck with me, Erlan, when you told me about it was you said that you thought they were kidding around with, like they were joking around with you, and you were just kind of laughing. And then it took a really, bad turn, and you realized what was happening. And I just think about like a kid not quite grasping that and just thinking this is fun and the police are just messing around with me. And then to realize how quickly that you can be dehumanized by others, adults, when you're a child. That just seems like such a scarring thing to have happen.
I think with that situation, I think the craziest part was thinking that you're being a good Samaritan, and then getting to court and the officers writing in their report, I was charging people $1 to pass. Something I hadn't even thought of. I wasn't even on that page. I was just trying to help. So,
and Erlan, give us a little bit of the background for people who haven't heard that episode before.
So I was leaving the swimming pool at a local park, and across from the park is a railroad track, and the train had passed by, and it was again a line of cars. They were all trying to get around the railroad track crossings because they came down and never went back up. So I'm like, well, I've seen this before. People lift them up. So I went, and the cars was trying to go around them from both sides. So I went and lift one side up, and the cars was going by, and a couple of minutes later, I was in handcuffs. So it really hurt. It was a trip. I trying to explain that is like a kid just like thinking it's a joke, and then realizing this ain't no joke. They put me in the car with handcuffs, and they taking me somewhere else to some other neighborhood. So it was like, as a kid, it hurt.
I mean, what's clear to me from this conversation and when we've spoken before is the fact that when we think about incarceration in America, the policies that shape it, who it impacts disproportionately, this is a multi-layered issue. And Nigel, for you, as you think about the future of Ear Hustle, what are those key questions you feel you can try to answer through these conversations and these stories you pull from people who are either still incarcerated or people who are returning to community?
Well, I think it's interesting that you ask if I can answer questions, or if we can answer questions. I don't know if we can answer questions. I feel like the thing we can do is put the stories out there, put the evidence out there, do our best to draw people in, and then those are the ingredients for people who are better than I am and smarter than I am to try to answer. So I stay in my lane, which is creating the stories. I wish we could answer the question of why is there injustice? Why are people so cruel? Why do people, relish hating other people? Those are such difficult questions to answer. But I believe that we can put the ingredients out there for the conversation. That's the most I can hope for, is that we breed compassion and the desire for other people to listen with compassion. And I hope we don't fall short of that, but that's what I think we can do.
Erlan, when you think about the future of the podcast, what are you envisioning over the next, few years?
I'm definitely delving into deeper stories. Like I said, we just got some questions from some juveniles, but hopefully we'll be able to go in and talk to juveniles and be able to talk to individuals in different countries and different prisons, see what their experiences are. As to like me at 9 years old, I personally think that they didn't have to criminalize my action. They could actually just talk to me. You know what I'm saying? They could actually just say, hey man, you can't do this. This is dangerous. And I would have, being this an authority figure, I would have taken that as gold and ran with it, but they criminalized it. But so I would say my mission, I guess, for the next forever is to continue to tell stories until there's nobody left in jail. But definitely delve into like a lot of different topics, because we have so many different stories to tell. And just finding the people, especially like in other prisons, it's kind of hard. Like Nigel said earlier, it's kind of hard when you're not anchored into a prison to be able to really just communicate with people to talk different stories through. But I definitely want to go into the high security prisons and talk about hell of a topics that they go through.
Yeah, I don't know if we have time. I think we're probably running out of time, but you brought up the episode we did talk with answering questions from juvenile offenders. I don't know what to call them, but it was to me, a really great example of what Ear Hustle is doing. That we got in the mail this beautiful handmade book from a juvenile detention facility in Mendota, Wisconsin, and these kids had come up with all these questions they wanted to ask guys inside, and whoever works with them helped them put together this beautiful book. In the last episode, we got formerly incarcerated people to answer these kids' questions. And I loved that they felt comfortable sending this book out into the world, never knowing if we were going to care about it. And the questions were so poignant. And one of the last questions was, is it too late to turn my life around? And when I read that, it really broke my heart that someone so young is asking strangers to answer that question for them. And I think that the episode did a really beautiful job answering that question. And I hope they're going to get to hear it. And I think it's going to make a difference. And to me, that's the promise of Ear Hustle, that strangers can connect like that and actually give people not just hope, but insight into how they can change their lives. And nobody wants to think about a young person thinking it's too late for them.
Well, speaking of hope, just as we wrap up here, I'm curious what each of you all are turning to for hope right now. What's bringing you hope? Nigel?
Yeah, I'm going to be a broken record. Working on Ear Hustle, continue the fact that we can keep that our team is so dedicated and are great creative problem solvers, that we can continue to put episodes of Ear Hustle out in this really difficult time. And every day I feel good about that. And the days I actually get to see Erlan, those are great days.
Erlan, what about you? What's bringing you hope?
Ooh, that's so much bringing me hope. Like, I think today I got a call from my parole officer this morning. They got me on 5 years parole. I've been out a year and some change. And I've been telling them, hey, man, it's been a mistake, man. I don't supposed to be on 5. I was commuted. So him calling me today like, hey, man, I think they trying to discharge you off parole. You know, that was like, finally.
Wow.
I've been on some form of paperwork, probation, parole, or prison since I was 14. Since I was 14, my name has been associated with this. I've been on something. So at 48, to get that call this morning, like, hey, bro, they probably finna let you off in a minute. That was like, I'm still like over here putting the file together, like, here, add this in there. Make sure this is in there. You know, here's some other stuff. Matter of fact, we was just finalists in the Pulitzer, so put that in there too.
I think that was funny, because right before this, we were going back and forth thinking of all the things, the things that Ear Hustle has done. And so it was actually a very nice reminder. And that's probably why I feel sentimental and teary now. Just reminiscing about all the things that we've done that I've kind of forgotten about. So.
But I definitely have hope that it's going to continue. I hope that, you know, we can come back into close proximity with people again and not social distancing. And I might continue to wear a mask even though it's all over. Because what I've been telling people, I said, if you think about it, for the last few years, people in China and them countries, they always wear masks when you see them. So they know something we don't know. So
Stay safe, yeah.
I think I'm going to hold on to that little mask.
Well, one thing I know is that Ear Hustle is a hell of a podcast. And it's just good to see both of your faces, even if it's virtually. It's good to hear your voices. And hopefully the next time we talk, it will be face to face.
Yeah, I really appreciate getting to spend time with you again. It's a joy.
All right, Nigel, Erlan, talk soon.
Thank you.
And congratulations again, Jen.
Thank you. Congratulations to you all.
Okay,
Here's another question we got from one of the kids.
Yep, this is a big one.
Is it too late to turn my life around?
No, absolutely not, man. You have no, for fuck's sake, no. No, this could be something you look back on like, yo, I went to juvenile hall when I was a kid and I learned my lesson and now I'm not doing that anymore. Like you could almost like hear yourself saying that 10 years from now, 20 years from now, like telling your kids like, dude, check it out, man. Like you don't need to learn the hard way. Like I went to juvie as a kid. I fucked up and now I'm not. I took that as a lesson learned. And like, that's just how it is.
I would say it's never too late. You know, everything that happens in our life is meant to happen to teach us something valuable. And while I know that sometimes these situations and circumstances we might find ourselves in and the consequences that we face might be harsh and they might hurt, on the other side of that pain and the emotion and confusion that goes along with that is a really valuable lesson. And, don't be afraid to ask for help and to like reach out to people. You know, if you see somebody that's where you want to be, tell them, reach out to them, ask them, how they got there, the things that they went through. And I guarantee you they'll tell you something that, that might blow your mind.
Thank you, Erlon and Nigel, and thank you, Jen, for moderating for us. On behalf of our board of directors, our staff, and especially the 1,400 youth and families we serve each year, thank you for joining us tonight and giving us an opportunity to share how we make a difference here at the Moran Center. If you're not able to support us tonight, we hope you can visit our website and make a gift as soon as you're able to. For those who did make a gift tonight, thank you. And again, for those who donate $500 by midnight tonight, you'll receive a special email with information about a backstage Zoom meeting with Nigel and Erlon at a future date, June 11th at 7:30 p.m. Thanks to your generous gift, we will keep the wheels of justice in action and support our youth and their families as we work together to rebuild.
No power tools for the drilling. I'm that cracking your ceiling. I'ma let the light in. Why live like someone else when it's our own skin we die in? Never lost my fight. I'm just changing where I'm fighting. And to get to the arena, it takes being open-minded. Freedom, I'ma find it. Then put my name on it. I know that I'm the key, but I'ma break the chains on them, yeah. So the cycle can end. Then I'ma donate my heart to be recycled again. Yeah, it's crazy. I found life in the pen without having life in the pen. See, you gotta know the places I've been to understand the headspace that I'm in. Cause this cage I'm in is man-made and it's made for men with space for every shade of skin. Where does grace begin? For those overcame by sin or lost souls never taken in. See, I can't pretend to be okay with the state we in. Will oppressors ever make amends? I highly doubt it. We living in a day and age where the heart and mind is separate. Love is devastating. Now how much can I take? All I gotta say is can I float away? Can I float away? Can I float away? Can I float away? Mazza, Roddy, E.
No lie, I lose my mind a little more every day that passes by. The depression from years of oppression I mask with smiles. I've been a slave, confined to a cage since I was a child. I've escaped the years of rage and my brain running wild. I'm maturing and progressing, using my mind as a weapon, deflecting the devil's restless attempts to snatch me from heaven. I hope by my corrections of mistakes of adolescence, certain curses turn to lessons and the Lord give more blessings. I pray that I'm destined to succeed and my family tree will never again have to worry about a thing. When I'm finally free, I hope the load on my people's shoulders finally ease and make me sick to the point my stomach flip. How flip in a bundle is the only way that I could send a couple dollars to my sis, so my mama doesn't take a scholar to figure out it's a slim amount of options to solve these problems. Life is like a school of piranhas, it'll eat you alive. I got open eyes, so those fish get fried with fries on the side. I'm hungry, I'm just trying to get more plus more, cause in this world you either eat or get 4 plus 4. You do the math, I'm trying to pursue the path that'll renew the past.